Hello, Sharif here. And today it looks like everything is working the way it should be working, which is good. And so, welcome to uh, the end of our future. Now, remember, in our twice a week format, on Tuesdays we're going to talk about the things that are leading to us ending the future that the life we've been living. And then on Thursdays we're going to talk about the our new life, our new way of being in the world, and the things that are ahead of us, the things that we can look forward to. But one of the things we can look forward to right now is our meditation. It's, I think, very important for us to get on the same page with each other, to get on the same page with our um, inner selves, and get on the same page with our future. So, what we're going to do, and I'm looking at my timing device right now, ta-da, and I'll set it as I usually do for 5 minutes. I'm going to call up a candle here to give us something to look at besides me with my eyes closed. And as usual, I'm going to invite us to, if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and square yourself in your chair or on the floor or wherever you're sitting. But you should be in balanced, and you shouldn't be your body shouldn't be binding in any way. Um, and we're going to just do a couple of deep breaths together to synchronize ourselves. So if you can breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in. And then breathe out. Breathe in. And this time when you breathe out, make an audible sound. So if you're ready, you can come back to our center, and if you are ready to open your eyes, you may do so, and rejoin our center, and hopefully you'll be um, a bit more focused and calm and ready to get into some what I think is interesting material. The challenge that we've got in looking at our Tuesday end of our future is what really needs to change. Um, Things that seem solid in our lives right now, things that seem like this is reality, are going to be changing to the point that we don't want, we will be, those of us who are flexible enough will be adopting a whole new reality. And those of us who are not flexible enough will be swept away in the dustbins of history. And so our job is to be flexible, is to get flexible, and to see where we need to be flexing. This is interesting because um, we don't know this future that we're going into. There's a lot of things that we can assume. There are a lot of things that we can predict, but we don't really know. So we're all going to be making this all up as we go along, and I'm hoping that I can provide um, not so much answers, but new frames for you to think in, so that you will not be um, overwhelmed by our future. Okay, so uh, some housekeeping stuff. Like this video. There's a button somewhere in your life that allows you to like it. Subscribe if you want notifications. Let's feed the algorithm. Let's try to expand the reach of this philosophy. Um, Also, mark your calendar for Thursday, same time, 6 p.m. Well, my 6 p.m. Pacific time, and we'll be looking at the positive side of the negative stuff I'll be presenting right now. So our history is full of examples of the limits of consciousness. Our consciousness is limited by the assumptions that we make. Our consciousness is limited by what we've been told is our lives. Our consciousness is limited by what we experience in our lives. So let me share with you some consciousness experiences. These are and I'm calling them consciousness frames because it frames how you see the world. Now, it doesn't have to be a limitation as long as you are willing, as long as you are able to let go of the frame. Okay. I was watching some young kids who were learning how to ice skate on there's an ice skating rink right near me, and I do a lot of my writing there is I can look over at the young kids trying to learn how to skate. And one kid just would not let go of the hand railing to get out and start skating. I guess he was 4 or 5 years old or so, maybe a little older. And the parents were encouraging him, and the skating staff were encouraging him, and he wasn't buying it. He did not want anything to do with this notion of strapping these knives on your feet and skating across the rink. Hopefully his framework would change. But speaking of ice, there's a story that came from. I don't even know the source of the story, but it had to do with a teacher who was teaching the young Inuit children up inside the Arctic Circle. And she had a globe, and she was showing the different places on the globe. And she asked them a question. How, if London is here and there's the Atlantic Ocean and then New York is there, how would you go from London to New York? And the answer she was looking for was boat or airplane. And all the kids answered immediately, and it was, dog sled or skidoo, um, the motorized skis. And she said, well, the Atlantic Ocean isn't frozen. So how would you go from London to New York? The kids had another ready answer. Wait for it to freeze and then go by dog sled or skidoo. And then she said, the Atlantic Ocean is never frozen. And there was a hush in the room. And one of the kids said, everything freezes. Now, if this teacher were smart, she would recognize that that she was butting up against these kids' consciousness frame, that they had a framework for seeing the world, and she just said that's not so, that you can't do that. And they know, and from their parents all the way back as far as time would go for them, they would know from their own experiences that everything freezes. So if she were conscious, she would take her time and help them walk through the experience. Or if she wasn't conscious, she'd just say, "Oh, y'all are just stupid, and the Atlantic Ocean isn't frozen," and keep going with that, and get them very un um, uh, upset with how they think the world worked. There's an opposite story. This was my personal story. Um, this had to do with a friend of mine from Sri Lanka, and the consciousness frame, not of Inuit children, but of Sri Lankan children, and living on the equator. And Sri Lanka is just a couple of degrees off from the equator. That's the teardrop-shaped island that hangs off the tip of India. The when the temperature gets down to about 70, you see the parents putting coats on their children because they're not used to temperatures that cold. So I had a friend who came to visit me actually two friends. Dr. Arya Ratne, the head of Sarvodia, came to visit me in Portland a few decades ago. And he had an assistant with him who was also a friend of mine. Because Ari had been around the world a lot of times, he had experienced snow. But I knew that Hewa, as a typical Sri Lankan, had never had an experience of snow. So this is May or June here in Portland, but there still is plenty of snow up on Mount Hood. So I loaded them in a car, said, okay, we're going to go up to Mount Hood, and everybody was okay. and we got up to Timberline Lodge, and the air was pretty chilly, but it wasn't cold. Um, so we got out of the car, and there was a snowbank over in on the side. So I picked up a double handful of snow, and I went over to my friend Hewa and just said, "Here, take this." So he picks it up, and his eyes almost fall out of his head, and he's like, "It's cold." I said, "Yeah, that's a slow." He said, "No, no, you don't understand. It's really cold." So he's trying to give me this snow back, and I don't want it. So I was like, "Oh, hey, that's your snow." So finally, he figures out that he can drop it. And I said, "You've heard all your life that snow is cold. So what did you think it was going to be?" He said, "I thought that snow was like cotton, like soft white cotton that you would put in a refrigerator. So it come out, cool." He had this was his first, and from his perspective, hopefully his last experience with real cold. So in both of these instances, we're talking about consciousness filters, consciousness frames, actually consciousness limitations. Now, those are kind of funny limitations from people who live in extremes on our planet. But how about everyday limitations? How about the limitations that just come up because we've been doing our cultures one way for a very, very, very long time? Um, there are consciousness frames that we tend to call things like racism, sexism, homophobia, ageism, you name it. But those, while you're trying to explain a phenomena, those explanations actually get in the way of your ability to perceive a reality and look beyond that reality. Most of you know that I tend not to use those words because most of the people who are busy putting somebody else down don't think they're doing it. They don't have a recognition of that they're doing it. I'll give you a couple of examples of this, and then we're going to keep going on. Okay, so this is a photo of the actress Hedy Lamarr in the 1930s, when she was 30s and 40s, when she was one of the hottest stars in Hollywood. She was routinely referred to as the most beautiful woman in the world. Um, the the She was in a starring role in a number of different movies. I think one of the biggest ones was Samson and Delilah. She got to play Delilah. Um, and But that was her public image and her visible image. The thing that is interesting about her is that she was also a scientist. She was interested in biology, was interested in engineering, was interested in a lot of things. Um, During World War II, a lot of the Allied ships were being sunk because um, torpedoes were guided at that time by radio. And you shoot the torpedo at the enemy ship, and you've got a radio receiver, and you've got it tuned to that torpedo. The torpedo's going from your ship to the one you want to sink, but they know that your ship is that you're guiding that torpedo by radio. So they're trying to dial through the radio spectrum to find your signal. If they find the signal, they can then turn that torpedo right around to hit your ship. So then, if you see your torpedo coming back to you, then you're trying to find that signal again to send it back. And the results were not to the liking of the people who were trying to sink the ship. So she had an idea, and the idea is really simple, and that is, instead of having one radio signal, to have the signal jump from one frequency to another frequency to another frequency. Now you could turn the knob, but the torpedo has to have those frequencies. So her idea was to put a roll inside the torpedo, like a player piano, so that both the ship and the torpedo would have the same signal as the signal goes hopping through frequencies. So this was called frequency hopping. We have another name for it now. It's called Wi-Fi. And for those of you who have ever used one of these things, you have Hedy Lamarr to thank for inventing it, if anyone had ever paid attention to her. We could have had Wi-Fi in the 1940s instead of getting it in the 1990s. She developed the idea. She actually proved that it worked, took the proof to the Pentagon, made a presentation to the generals in the planning and development department. And they said to her, well, the most important thing that you could do to help the Allied effort is to raise war bonds, to help us get some money. Because when they looked at her, they didn't see a competent scientist who not only developed the theory, but actually developed the practical application. She has the she has the patent. Now, this is her patent. She put it under her a married name, Hetty Kistler Markley, I think it says there, but it's her patent. It worked. She proved it worked, but they could not see any of that. The only thing they saw in front of them was a woman. And they knew that women didn't do much of anything. And except for her, she was pretty. That's all that counted. I'm going to go to this person. This woman, not nearly as photogenic as Hedy Lamarr, her name is Lise Meitner. And she has the distinction of being the first person to split the atom. Now, Einstein did the theoretical part that said it's possible to split an atom. She actually did it. For those of you who saw the movie Oppenheimer, you'll remember there's a part in the movie where he's in a lecture and somebody rushes into the room and said, they split the atom. And he said, that's not possible. And then he gets his chalk out and he starts writing on the board all the reasons why it's not possible. And somebody else came in and said, that all may be true, but they did it. So maybe you should figure out what they did. So um, the idea behind splitting the atom was there. Okay. Oops, I did something. So the idea of splitting the atom was there, but this was a woman. So you couldn't have a woman doing things like this. So she had to put her research in the name of her, they say collaborator, but the collaboration was give me your stuff and I'll put it under my name. So the man who got the Nobel Prize for splitting the atom was her student. And when he was called to various universities to explain how he did it, he had to go to her and say, how'd you do it? So his name was Otto Hahn. And the biggest irony is that later in her life, she gets the Otto Hahn Award for assisting him in doing what she alone had done. This is what the framework looks like. This is how the framing of situations comes up. This is how we get the things that we call sexism, racism, etc., because people just simply don't have the right frame, or they're not able to expand their frame. So let me talk about one more frame. I think just one more frame. Oh, actually, I've got a few more frames. And I didn't get these pictures loaded, but believe me, I've got pictures. So the Dogon people in West Africa, in Mali, have said for centuries that they were from the star Sirius. They're star people. For centuries, they said that Sirius, the star that they're from, was really two stars. Now, everybody's seen Sirius. It's one of the brightest stars in the sky. It's actually one of the closest stars to the Earth. But the Dogon people said, no, it's actually two stars. One of them is Sirius A, and the other one is Sirius B. Now, although the Dogon people had experienced this reality that they'd been to this star before, that they were in contact with teachers who were teaching them from the stars. Although they had done this, these are Black people wearing masks and dancing around. Of course, they couldn't have done this. So when they found that, when they finally in 1930s got telescopes powerful enough to find Sirius B, did the Dogon people get credit for that? Of course not. They said something else. Okay, so and the scientists who heard that the Dogon people had said that there was a Sirius B said, "Oh, lucky guess. They were just guessing that." Or some of them said the uh, they had overheard some white people who were traveling through Africa talk about Sirius B, and had just copied them. Although the Dogon people said it first. They said something, so they just said lucky coincidence, or they are copying somebody else. So they said, wait a minute. The Dogon people said that Sirius B has an elliptical orbit around Sirius A, and that the orbit takes 50 years. Well, come to find out, later on, they get powerful enough telescopes to look at the orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A, and guess what? It takes 50 years. Oh, another coincidence. That has to be a coincidence. These people can't know these things. And then the Dogon people said, Sirius B is made of very, very dense material. It's a very dense star. So then they develop, and then this is 2016, they had the Hubble telescope pointed at Sirius B, and they were able to do measurements, and they found out that it's a neutron star. And a neutron star is so dense that 1 teaspoonful of the star would weigh a ton. So it's one of the densest things in the universe. But do the Dogon people get credit for discovering that? No. And then the Dogon people says, oh, guess what? There's a third star there, Sirius C. And it has an orbit around Sirius A also, and that orbit is 6 years. And we don't have a telescope powerful enough to see it yet. So when do we go to the Dogon people? When do we send our astronomers to the Dogon people and say, please, sirs and ma'ams, can you give us more information here? Or will we continue to take their knowledge or ignore their knowledge and say, we've got another, it has to come from the mouth of somebody wearing a tie at a university that you've heard of, and some folks up on a hill somewhere in West Africa who have never ever seen a telescope, let alone seen through a telescope. They can't know what they're talking about, although they've been knowing what they've been talking about for hundreds of years. What would happen if we were smart enough, if we were conscious enough, if we were curious enough to walk past our framework, past the things that limit us, and say, oh, this is something that is outside of my knowledge base, but let's test it. Let's look at it. Let's go ahead and act like scientists. Let's test Hedy Lamarr's invention. Let's give credit to Lise Meitner. Let's actually appreciate what diversity actually means. This isn't let's like these people over here. Let's recognize that everything and everyone has the ability to bring a new perspective to the table, has the ability to help us to understand the world in a different way. And just because I don't understand how the Dogon people could know these things. It doesn't mean they don't know them. And what I've been on the path for is understanding the mechanisms that allow us to have a deeper understanding of our own reality. We'll be talking more about that in on Thursday. And I'm looking over in my comments section on the live stream. I'm not seeing anything. I don't have any comments from last time that was sent to me by text or email. And so we're ready to wrap up. I am I'm looking forward to, I don't like doing, a big dollop of the end of the future, but I think it actually works out well because you can see clearly the things that need to end. We need to end this framework that says, I can't look in these directions over here. I can't open myself to these directions over here. I'm looking at what these directions are pointing to on Thursday, and we'll see where they go. I'm going to wrap up now, and I'm going to wrap up with the expanded inclusivity prayer. May I be well. May I, this one, be well. May I be secure. May I be happy. And then may you be well. May you be secure. May you be happy. For all of us here, may we be well. May we be secure. May we be happy. And finally, may all beings be well. May all beings be secure. May all beings be happy. Oh, and thank you, Arthur, for saying thank you to me. I will look forward to talking to all of us on Thursday.